Life is very complex. And what makes it complex is our mind. Life can be simple if there were no desires, there was no struggle, there was no suffering at the mind level. When mind dies, life becomes very simple. Simple existence and its glory and its beauty is beyond imagination of the mind. And what is mind? Mind, traditionally, we use it for running towards the objects of pleasure and running away from the objects of suffering. That strategy belongs to the mind. The only time you can come out of the mind is if you try to understand the delicate ways, the subtle ways, how the mind traps you and takes you into the sansar, into this world, and takes you away from the inner consciousness. Let's take an example. You have a friend who is a good friend, gives you a lot of company, you have a lot of laugh. Day by day, your friendship is strengthened, and you start believing that this relationship will be forever. And till you die, nothing happens. You got used to staying with a friend, enjoying his company, etc. And then there's another friend that you had. Something went wrong. He cheated you. He did something that was not right. And all of a sudden, you are in a shock. You are in a suffering. Mind is thrown into a spin. So the suffering happens at the mind level. Who would you call a friend? A friend that makes you believe in the sansaric pleasures, or the one that shakes your foundation, that your belief in the sansar gets weakened. You get hurt from the breakage of that relationship. Who is better for you to go on the path of spirituality? The friend with whom you get used to and taking for granted that he will keep on giving you the pleasure of his company, or the one who made you realize that relations can be broken, can be transient, can be fragile. By making the relationships questionable, you start asking yourself, so where is the pleasure? The reason you got hurt when the friend betrayed you, what got hurt? your belief that pleasure should last forever. And who decided that? Mind. Mind relies on the sansara for all its pleasures. And when it doesn't get the pleasures, it runs away from the pleasures, from the sufferings. When the pleasure breaks, it receives the suffering. So then it looks for more pleasures. One friend betrayed you, you look for another friend. And then try to console yourself that that friend was no good, but this friend is good. I enjoy his company. You never thought of finding something that can give you permanent pleasure, perpetual happiness. You missed your chance. But supposing something wakes up in your mind with the realization that relationship with the sansar can be a source of suffering. So what would you do? You go within, find out your true self, and he becomes your friend. He becomes your permanent source of pleasure. So a friend can be an enemy can be a friend on the path of spirituality. Say you win in the stock market, and it made you confident that you know something about the stock market. You keep on playing, buying more and more stocks, trading more and more stocks. All of a sudden, stock market crashes and brings you down to the dust. When you were winning, you were happy. It made you confident in the technique how to win in the stock market. It made you rely on something. But the world is beyond you, beyond anybody. Who would have thought 911 would take place and the economy of the whole world sink? Worldly events are not predictable, but you started predicting your future before the crash happened. So again, you relied on the sansar to receive these pleasures, and you started rising above the intricate workings of the sansar. Your ego was playing a role. So when you lost money in the stock market, traditionally people will say, horrible happened. I lost all the money. And I will work hard to be more careful next time. But 6 months, 2 years later, you're back in the stock market. Cautiously, but still, you're in it. With full of optimism. Not for 1 second you thought that playing the stock market can be dangerous. So, when you lost money, was that good for you or not? If you can learn from it, it was good. Because then you would go towards the peace. Then you would go towards the security. So, winning can be losing, and losing can be winning on the path of spirituality. These are the intricate situations, delicate workings of the mind. you acquire a lot of money, what happens with that money? Your underlying vasanas and vrittis, the desires, get a loudspeaker. Just like a crow, if he's given a loudspeaker, he's crowing, the whole world will have to listen. So money only brings out the ugliness within you. You end up consuming more alcohol. You end up womanizing. You end up building bigger and bigger homes, running after the mechanisms which have made the money for you to do more and more, away from your spouse, away from your children, missing out the subtle pleasures of life, the company of your children, a happy home. Was the money good for you or bad for you? Versus, if you have less money, you spend more time home, don't eat out, and your children grow up to be wise, friendly, and down to earth. Did the lack of money, was it good for you or bad? All these decisions we make in life based on likings and dislikings. And this is the territory of the mind. The job of spirituality is to raise your awareness. This does not mean that you walk away from good friends and keep more company of the friends who turned into enemies. That doesn't mean that you don't make money in the world. But just understand that money cannot be the source of pleasure perpetually. That does not mean that you don't make good friends. But if you rely on the friendship as a permanent source of pleasure, then that's where your mistake is. So realize the sansar is chanchal. Chanchal is unstable. The enemies, stock market loss, insults from someone are good for you. In the sense, it wakes you up what sansar can do to you. But only with the power of observation you can take this approach. Normally, if something happens, we are caught into emotionalism. Say you had a sudden loss of your close family, a brother or a sister. This is the time to wake up and realize the fragility of the sansar, to understand the nature of sansar. Once you understand the nature of the sansar, there is a chance that you can start rising above, and meditation makes it happen for you to walk away from the mind. The whole idea of meditation is to break your connection with sansar, a true vairagya. Most of the times people interpret vairagya as running away from sansara. You give up everything and run into Himalayas or into the secluded jungles and spend your rest of your time over there. People call this vairagya. That's running away from samsara. But then that's not the rising within. The rising happens within you. Whatever is outside is immaterial. In fact, running away from samsara will take away the opportunities for you to learn from the samsara and rise spiritually. The rising spiritually can happen only within you. And for that you need experiences. Every experience can be a teacher for you. So bad experiences are better teachers for you to rise spiritually. But we don't learn. We get stuck into emotionalism, which don't do anything. And on top of that, you will find a lot of people to agree with you that yes, this particular loss is not good. That's what happened to you. And they give a sympathy for you. In fact, you do suffer and you show a lot of suffering, sometimes to even require sympathy from others, so you feel good. This is child's game. If a person is suffering, goes to Buddha, Buddha will say, just because you are crying from your loss does not mean I will cry with you. Your sufferings are your own creations, but I can make you Buddha who can understand that this suffering is because of your expectation from samsara. But if the guy is not looking for this, he will walk away and go back to his samsara, into the same cycle of expecting pleasures, sometimes getting it, sometimes not getting it. If he gets it, he's happy. That's samsara. Or he may decide to stay with Buddha. Buddha says, I will make you a Buddha. If at all Buddha will cry, he will cry at the suffering of the man who can be a Buddha and not suffer. Suffering is our creations because we keep running after the samsara as a source of pleasure. Break that dream. Come to the realization. Rise within and you realize the ultimate bliss is waiting for you. But for that, a little shock is necessary for you to break that dream of samsara and samsara as a source of pleasure. Once you start doubting your mind, there is no stopping. Then you will rush inside and rise higher and higher, deeper and deeper, and enjoy the fruits of real life consciousness that gave rise to all this drama. Realize this. Have a good day.